Cool. All right, Victoria. So, um, I'd love to start just by hearing about what your own sort of current focus is and sort of where you find yourself aligning in these times. I mean, for me, it's funny because I've been on a few podcasts before, and a lot of
Mhm,
times they'll ask like, "Oh, so tell me who you are," things like that, and it's
mhm.
never the same answer. Like I feel like who we are is changing on a day to day. So, where do you find your own energy aligning and where your focus is at right now?
Yeah, so yeah, that's an interesting question because I feel like it totally resonate that it changes all the time. But yeah, at the moment, I would say I'm a healing facilitator, a coach, and a content creator. I'm working on kind of a new project that I'm hoping to release soon, which is going to be more kind of video content, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, I work in the spiritual realm. I don't necessarily like to buy myself in that spiritual community and
Yeah.
in that whole world, because I feel like again it's just another label. um but yeah, I help people kind of awaken to their true nature, to their soul, in whatever capacity it might be, to whatever their truth might be. um and yeah, I work with different modalities. I'm always like, I feel like I'm a forever student and
Yeah.
always learning new things. So yeah, I work with like Reiki, angelic Reiki, Akashic records. I do some stuff with like mindset as well, NLP, hypnotherapy. So really all kinds of modalities.
Wonderful. And I love that you said it's just another label in terms of adding like the being part of the spiritual
Yeah.
community because I feel like it's the same. I'm in the same boat in a way. It's hard to sometimes categorize who we
Yeah.
are and what we're doing based on the I don't know, because all of those things there are such, profound services, but at the same time when we put ourselves within a box, it almost
Yeah.
limits who we are in a sense to try and label and
Yeah.
to try and categorize. So I
And then
definitely
yeah, you feel the oh sorry, but
no,
yeah,
no.
then you feel like this pressure to like be like, am I spiritual enough?
Right.
Am I the spiritual person? Am I fitting in? Like, is this what I'm doing a spiritual thing or it's not? So it's a bit funny thing because yeah, I went through the phase where I felt like, oh my gosh, like feeling so much shame because of like my kind of human experience that somehow didn't fit into the spiritual world. But now I'm just trying to free flow and like not really limit myself because it's just, I think, kind of this spiritual ego layer. um so yeah, I'm just me.
Yeah.
And I'm yeah,
Authentically you.
yeah.
Wonderful. No, and I feel the same way. It's like can the most spiritual thing we can do is be human in its fullest
Yeah.
sense, right? I think that's one of the big lessons I've learned. What do you think? A lot of your work seems to center on aligning people with their higher self, right? And really
Mhm.
getting people to tune into that part of themselves. What would you say in your experience, and maybe it's you can speak to personal experience, but also working with others, what do you think it is sort of the main blockages that are present for people to that I guess naturally disconnect them from the higher self, right? And make a lot of this
Mhm.
work more necessary. And how do we really hone in on when they may be present? Because a lot of times they're blind spots, and we're not going to recognize when they're actually there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's such a broad question as well. But to be fair, in the past, I don't know, like few months, I've been noticing this pattern of, I think like at the core of all of this is really this feeling of like who we are is not enough. So we need to build those like layers on top of who we actually are to be like to fitting into this like fake really world
Yeah.
that somehow was created for us, like, and everyone is uncomfortable and everyone feels inauthentic and everyone is sort of like feeling trapped in, but we're sort of following that game. And I think for me is like my passion, and I feel like my mission sort of is to get into that root and to kind of this origin of like who you actually are and what really, like, how do you actually feel at the core, like behind all these layers that you feel like, oh, you need to do this to fit into your family, to fit in among your friends, to fit into like the world at large and what you see on socials and all of that, and just getting into the core, because I think like this not enoughness and feeling that you as you are is not good enough, so therefore you need to change. And it's sort of like this spiral of like suffering, really, like you should do this, you should do that, and it's never ending because there are so many kind of these expectations, and there will always someone who will feel like, oh no, you're too much, or no, you're too little, or you're not, you'll never really find the end of it all. Because yeah, so I think just stepping away from all of that and kind of releasing all these layers to come back to who you really are. So I kind of like, there's the quote by Ram Dass about like, we are all walking each other home. And sort of, I feel like that home is this our, like who we are at the core, really. And oftentimes it's really going back to who we were as a child, and really, exploring that and what really made us, excited as children, and what made us feel alive, and all these kind of, I find it really such an interesting journey. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, going back to at the beginning of your question, I think this is the biggest thing, is like not feeling enough
Yeah.
as we are.
Absolutely. And that was definitely the journey I had to go on, was the feelings of recognizing the feelings of unworthiness that are often deeply rooted, so much that
Yeah.
we don't even recognize we're not unworthy.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like masquerading in all of our behaviors or tendencies or patterns that we've accumulated over the years as coping strategies for the harsh
Yeah.
realities of this world. And it seeps in. It's very subtle oftentimes, but I think those subtle behaviors and those subtle patterns, they're often what makes the big difference in terms of if we are living a life that is, truly resonant and aligned with our true nature, versus something that is just a shell of ourselves or a shell of our own potential, and we're not actually living up to the truth that we know is possible within our own hearts, right? Because I think
Yeah.
a lot of like people know who they are, but it's more of sort of just about remembering who they are as opposed to like
Yeah.
learning. You sort of almost just have to
Yeah.
unlearn and then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
go into a process of remembering, if that makes sense, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Because yeah, that's also another kind of pattern of seeing, is just like people getting outside to find like who they are, and just like saying, oh, I need to find my purpose, I need to find who I am. But yeah, you're totally right that it's just really going back and just, again, like kind of removing what's actually blocking you from knowing, rather than kind of topping that up with more layers and getting
Yeah.
more confused and asking all these people like, please tell me, who am I? And I think that's also what's a mark of like okay, I don't want to kind of label again, but sort of as a good coach or good guide, is to, that person will not tell you who you are, but they more like guide you to your back to yourself, and just provide you with tools to do that, rather than give you like straight answers, because only you can have these answers, really. So yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, it's really important to just like stop for a second and ask yourself. But obviously, kind of in the outside world, when you need to kind of fit into the system, they're not going to care about who you actually are. They would just give you all these labels and give you all these kind of, what it seems to be like a knowledge, just to kind of cause more distortion and disconnection between like who you actually are and what you're supposed to be to fit into the system again. And unfortunately, at the moment where we are, it's like it's in our hands to kind of find that out, rather than we're not being really taught this at school or in like a mainstream world, because obviously then it's like it would kind of take away their power. We cannot know that, oh, we have that power to know who we are and decide on our lives. And I like how now it's kind of changing, because yeah, there are more people talking about it, and there are more of these things kind of slipping into like education system and little pieces like mindfulness classes, all of that. But there's definitely that shift there where, yeah, people are being educated about this to kind of take a step back and really look within.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because the idea of inner power is something I've been really playing with lately. And our
Mm,
power and what we believe is power, it ultimately resides where our minds think it resides, right? So if we're externalizing it, we're outsourcing it to kings, queens, governments, whatever, education systems, all these different like I would say aspects of society where we tend to label power, right? Like
mhm,
that's sort of what we've been trained to believe power is. But if we look inside, when we label all that stuff as powerful, we forget about the power that is naturally living within us. And power is just an internal.
mhm.
It's I would say an internal. What's the right word? Maybe remembrance of our true nature. Like if
Yeah,
we own our power, we are owning our true self, and we are owning our ability to create and manifest and be this beacon of light that we are
yeah,
naturally are in our I would say life before we are told to forget about it, right? And so
yeah,
um, something like education, you would think that they don't teach about it, but maybe
yeah,
if they wouldn't need to teach about it if we weren't told to forget about it in the first place, right? So it would sort of
yeah,
naturally build on that childlike exploration, like you said earlier. And we
yeah,
could really, I guess it would allow us to own who we are and be, uh, I guess, explore this realm in a lot of ways, because I think there's so much beauty and there's so much mystery that we're meant to explore and so much that we're meant to experience that we're just starting to begin to realize that we're just starting
mhm,
to have this shift, like you mentioned, in society. And I think more people are exploring this. But
yeah,
as a result of that, you're naturally going to have, when that external thing we've been focusing on and that external structure we've created, when we start taking our energy away from that, it's
mhm,
naturally going to respond with almost more of a push to try and get us
mhm.
back, right? And I think that's what we're
Yeah,
seeing in a lot of ways. It's this like,
yeah,
oh
that
no,
is
come back, don't leave us.
interesting. Yeah, it's actually crazy because I mean, yeah, exactly, because it's like a domino effect. You
Yeah,
know, once one person realizes that, and it's just I even notice that in my personal life. Like once I'm delving deeper and deeper into this, and I feel like my energy expanding, and it kind of radiates into other people in my life, and they are actually also on this journey. So it's really beautiful. And when you think about like thousands and millions of people are doing this, like what a effect that is. And even on your own journey, like the more you delve into it, it expands and expands, like it never ends, and you keep on like kind of delving deeper into this. And it's really such an amazing journey. But as you said, like it's so powerful that the backlash of it, it's also kind of strong. And one can say like everything that's been happening, it looks like, oh, everything is going worse, but actually it's just, to me, the way I see it now, it's just a proof like how like desperate and strong they need to go because of how powerful that change is. So they no longer can be like saddled with it. They need to like push hard and make it very so like visible and public, and to the like ridiculous level, to have any control, because otherwise it doesn't work anymore, because
exactly.
yeah, we're
Exactly.
completely past that.
Exactly. We're moving into this new sort of this new way of experiencing life and experiencing ourselves, and our old control systems. I guess we have to go through the necessary death process in a lot of ways to be rebirthed into this new reality. And it's we have our own internal deaths that we have to feel
Yeah,
and mourning and processing, and this willingness to really go into the shadows right now and actually
yeah,
I would say lean into the chaos, lean into the pain that may be present, because it can allow us to, uh, I would say, move forward. But at the same time, it's interesting because there was a tweet that you put out the other day that I saw just saw, and I really resonated with it about experiencing and learning through love as opposed to experiencing and learning through pain and
Mhm.
suffering, right? Because
Mhm.
I definitely, in the past, and even while I've been on the spiritual path, have justified the path of pain and suffering as an
Mhm.
opportunity for growth and an
Mhm.
opportunity for expansion. I'm like, oh yeah, no problem, because I can handle a lot of pain. I've been in a
Mhm.
lot of pain in life, and I'm very comfortable with finding myself in pain, right? But at the
Mhm.
same time, how much of that is self-induced based upon my own path of choosing the path of pain versus
Mhm.
the path of love and learning through love, right? So
Mhm.
it's interesting to navigate that in a time when the external world is so it's causing a lot of people a lot of pain, right? And there's a
Yeah.
lot of we are there is a necessary level of pain I think we have to feel, but what is that balance, right? And it's tough because I don't know if what the exact right balance is for everybody, and it's going to be unique, I suppose. But that's I think that's a really profound lesson to actually just sit with, choosing the path of
Yeah.
love over the path of pain.
Yeah, I know that's interesting. And I think everyone has their own kind of personal journey with this, and they need to find that out themselves. Because no matter, you can listen to all these videos and people telling you this, but I feel there are some of these things that you literally need to experience and to reach the point of like, no, I'm not like I'm done being, like a victim and putting myself always into those suffering cycles and all of that. Because I think a lot of us that are on this like awakening journey, yeah, probably most of us, we kind of, our early lives were, burdened with like some pain and maybe difficult situations, and that's how we kind of awakened and got to like heal ourselves and so on. But at some point you need to realize that actually I'm not here to suffer, and learn, like you don't have to learn only through those hard lessons, and you can actually stop resisting, because the universe are showing us lessons and signs like in very subtle ways and very loving ways at first, and only then if we really cannot, we cannot like hear it, or we ignore it and yeah, put that resistance, because sometimes it might put us outside of our comfort zone, only then it need to like hit us hard
Yeah.
and bring us suffering. So it's really, I would say probably at the very end, that it needs to go this extreme for us to finally learn and notice that, okay, maybe I can, maybe there's a lesson here, maybe I need to move on from this and so on. So I think it's also learning that, I don't need to go through these painful experiences. I can, and like kind of welcome life and changes with ease and yeah, love. I don't have to always suffer, and things don't have to be like chaotic. It's just a matter of how I, yeah, look at things, and also how much I pay attention. So it's also going back kind of to the present and being mindful of things and being really here and now. um, because the universe, or whatever you want to call it, like always give us kind of, yeah, the guidance and signs to what we're supposed to do, and when it's, for instance, a time to like leave a relationship before it gets really to the point that it's like toxic and painful. you know so yeah, I think that's really important. I think like I'm in a point where I'm starting to like learn this, and kind of give myself grace and feel like, oh, I don't have to suffer. Like I've been on this journey of suffering, but I don't have to, this doesn't have to be my identity, this doesn't have to be my reality, and I can kind of shift into something else.
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
and yeah, and I think perhaps there's a lot of like this kind of programming and notion in like the mainstream, but even like spiritual community, that, oh yeah, the hard lessons and all of that. And obviously it's, I guess, as long as we're here on this earth in the 3D, it will never be completely all fairy tale and all always light and love and light vibes only. But it's a way, like it's a matter of like how we approach this, and
Yeah,
how we look at this. Yeah.
absolutely. And that's definitely something I've learned of, that path of love. I think oftentimes we mistaken love for just the fairy tale, like you mentioned, where it is
Yeah.
all light and beauty all the time. And that's a huge part of love, don't get me wrong. And that's sort of the reaping the rewards of it and recognizing how that is always present. But at the same time, sometimes the path of love is making the more difficult decision, or it is putting up the
Yeah.
personal boundary, or it is choosing to end the relationship before,
Yeah.
when you see the major red flag, and then it's like, oh no, it's okay. I'm going to ignore this one right now because it's more comfortable to do so,
Yeah.
and that's the signs that you're talking about, the gentle signs of, hey, this is the path that you, or I guess there isn't a right or wrong answer
Yeah.
necessarily, but it's more of, hey, this is in your awareness. What would you like to do about it? And if we ignore that, then that's exactly when we, if we choose not to actually take action based upon our awareness, that's when we will get smacked around in the face, like you
Mm.
just mentioned, because we're going against what we actually know. And it's a
Mm.
slight, I think it's a form of resistance that is very often unconscious. We don't even necessarily
Mm.
recognize we're resisting, but
Yeah.
slowly and surely that resistance builds up to more and more and more to where it does sort of just explode in our face. And it creates that pain and suffering, which was completely avoidable. Um,
Yeah.
but the path of love isn't always going to be the nurturing, super well, maybe nurturing is not the right word, but it's not always,
Easy.
yeah, it's not always going to be easy. It's not
Yeah.
always going to be the comfortable decision to make,
Yeah.
because love in its unconditional form, it pushes our ego's boundaries, right? Because
Mm. Yeah.
that's the ego is built in limitation in a sense, so it's
Yeah.
going to have its boundaries expanded upon if we actually want to love in a more radical and unconditional way. So, yeah,
Yeah, because yeah, our mind is always tries to go back into security, into safety, into what it's known. And most of us, we are not taught to follow the path of love or the path of alignment.
yeah,
Unfortunately, we're not there yet. I think we're shifting into this and so on, but as a collective, yeah, most of us are not. So obviously, yeah, it's gonna be a bit like uncomfortable, but as you said, it just in the long run, it's going to kind of help us avoid these, very dramatic and painful experiences. And, but yeah, oftentimes you need to kind of take like this high road and just, not listen to that ego and really follow, yeah, the love. And also like what is also interesting, because sometimes people like confuse when when you say like when is resistance, like you should let go of resistance, when is resistance or there's something uncomfortable, we shouldn't follow that. But to be fair, if you want to like shift, if you want to follow love, then it's going to be uncomfortable, but you have to kind of understand whether that discomfort is from fear, like fear of change, fear of going outside of your security, or whether it's actually yeah, like our inner guidance telling us, oh, this is not for me, and like this, you shouldn't be doing this. So I guess it's a matter of, yeah, really tuning in. um but but yeah, it's really interesting. And like that's why I said it's difficult to tell someone like what you should do, and what decision is actually good or bad. Like you
yeah,
really need to experience all of that yourself. And again, yeah, there's also no right or wrong path, because again, if you're not going to learn this lesson now, it's going to come back again, and you get to learn this again. And or if you let's say pass this
yeah,
lesson, there's going to be another lesson, because you're going to get deeper and deeper, and this thing like never really ends, because we continuously like expand and evolve. So
yeah.
yeah, it's like never ending.
Absolutely. It's an infinite expansion. And in a way, that's
Yeah.
beautiful, but I guess for a lot of people, it can also be terrifying to recognizing that this game
Yeah.
does not end during this lifetime. There is no destination necessarily
Mm.
that we need to be striving towards. And if anything, the destination is the present moment, and that means it's already here. So it's like, all right, let's sit in that and let's be
Mm-hmm.
very present to what is the most conscious, empowering choice, right? Because you're
Mm.
right, there's no right or wrong most of the time, even if it's, you have all these red flags with somebody, maybe there's no right or wrong choice of whether you're going to end that relationship, or you're going to set a more firm boundary, or you're just going to ignore it altogether, right? There's no black and white answer. There's a multitude of infinite different possibilities in the way that you could approach it. Maybe it's a subtle
Mm.
difference, maybe it's a completely removing somebody from your life, and it's there's no right or wrong. Each one is going to have its own karmic impact, its
Yeah.
own like it's going to have its own energy to it. And how you go into the decision itself, if you're approaching it from a space of love and resonance and trying to better understand yourself and be empathetic towards others, that's ultimately going to be the decision that is in most, highest alignment with love, right? I talked with Paul Check on my podcast, and he gave me the question of, well, what would love do now? And he had me keep asking that. I would ask him a different question. He said, well, what would love do now? What would love do now?
Yeah.
How about now? And so, if you can go into life continually asking that question in each scenario,
Mm,
you're not going to get the same answer every time, but you're going to be guided in the direction of love, which is
yeah.
ultimately what is, what really is going to liberate us in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
But it's also funny because sometimes I feel like we don't want to hear that answer because
Yeah.
it's just so uncomfortable. You're just like, okay, what would love do right now? And I'm like, oh no, my ego wants to,
Yep.
do something completely else. This is not according to my plan to, what I think I should do. So yeah, that's why we're this discomfort comes in. And I think it also takes a lot of commitment, really. And also alignment, because I feel like sometimes it takes you some time and some like inner work, inner healing to reach a point where you can make like this decision to, okay, I'm ready to finally do this. Because like, for instance, you learn about like different topics and like what you should be doing, how you can heal yourself, like how can I maybe have healthier relationships. But sometimes it's just words, and then you need to kind of align yourself to really be on the same level energetically. So sometimes, and you need to, like, it takes time to reach that point where you can make those decisions and really follow, let's say, that path of love.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just like a resistance, and then you're in the cycle of like feeling maybe shameful that, oh, why can I do this? And again, like, we're not really here to do that. And and then like punish ourselves and say, oh, we're not spiritual enough, oh, I should be doing this,
Yeah.
because again, even that resistance, like, this is what we came here to do, and to have that full human experience and experience those times of doubt and resistance, and learning how to like kind of overcome them, and kind of learn from them, and then to kind of level up. um but yeah, it's quite interesting how you have all these emotions and like all these situations, and you really like get to learn from them and learn the whole kind of scope of human experience.
Yeah.
And it's not always like this path of love and spiritual, and it sometimes is very confusing and not so pretty.
Right, exactly. And the path isn't always going to be exactly clear. Like you're saying, there's going to be a lot of shadows, a lot of darkness we need to navigate. And I think what love does at first, and maybe what makes people afraid of it, is it does break down our barriers that we put up, right? A lot of times we place armor over our own hearts. We hold our shields of protection. We're afraid of being hurt. We're
Yeah.
afraid of pain. And love in itself actually makes you sit in that first. Like you
Yeah.
have to heal in order to fully be able to make the commitment, like you just said, to
Mm,
forging a path that is in alignment with love, right? You can't, it's hard to walk hand in hand truly in unconditional love if you are really sitting in this unprocessed trauma and pain, and you refuse to, or you're just not ready to face it, because that's going to dictate a lot of your unconscious behaviors and how you choose to navigate the world, right? So when you
yeah.
take that path of love and you start asking that question, at first you are going to be faced with resistance and darkness and
Yeah.
the what you have always feared to face. So I think in a lot of ways that's going to make people resistant to love's
Mm.
calling, because they're like, oh, this is what love is bringing me, I don't want that. And so they'll,
Yeah.
they hide, and it's understandable because it's not easy to go
Mm,
through it, especially because a lot of times we have to go through it on our own. We're sort of on a
yeah.
hero's journey, and we can have the support of others, but it's rare when somebody is truly sitting in the same exact thing as you, right? You have your own
Mm,
unique pains and traumas that you have to really go through to find that inner love, right? So
yeah.
it's, I can see why somebody is going to run the other way.
Yeah, I mean it is crazy because it's also a matter of like how everyone wants love. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to feel loved, everyone experience love, but then at the same time when it's really there or we have that calling for love, so often we just run away.
Yeah.
And we sometimes be like, oh, that other person will bring us that love, or but oftentimes they're just kind of like fillers, and it's never really about that other love, about like other person that can bring that love, but it's actually like how we cultivate that love within ourselves and on a daily basis, whether that partner or family member whatsoever is going to be there or not. So that's, yeah, that's always interesting, to kind of realize at the end of the day it's just us and how we approach love. It's not about the other person at all.
Right, exactly. And then each person really serves as a mirror for our own
Yeah.
capacity for inner love, right? You can have a magical experience with somebody where you express such a pure love with that person, and that's beautiful, right? And it's, you kind of go from the duality into unity with another person, right? And you merge into the oneness. But what they're doing is they're serving as a sacred mirror for what love exists already within oneself. And so if you can
Yeah.
like if we were not capable of loving ourselves in that way, we wouldn't be capable of loving another person in that way, right? So it is very easy for us to externalize it onto another, whether it's a
Yeah.
partnership or a family. And I like to think about, like, just imagine somebody in your life who you love so unconditionally, so purely, right? Where does that feeling come from? What is,
Mm,
like, you feel that within you. Now let's take that feeling and direct it back towards ourselves. Okay. Can
yeah.
we sit in that and recognize that just as much as we give that energy to that other person, we are worthy of receiving it back.
Mm.
Not everybody wants to, is, that's a lot. That's a lot to sit with, but
Yeah.
it's the capability of what love, the possibility of love within ourselves. And we can, I would say, put our internal foundation within the space of that love, then reality really starts to, we start to all walk each other home, like you were saying with the Ram
Yeah.
Dass quote. I think that's really what he's pointing to when he's saying that.
Yeah, and yeah, going back also to all the signs that we receive, again, like when we treat, those relationships and other people as mirrors, we see how those signs and this guidance is like literally everywhere on a
Yep.
daily basis, like how you interact with people and how your, yeah, relationships are. And again, it's just a matter of like whether are you willing, to listen, or not, whether it's also not a matter of, now if you have some bad interaction with someone, now blaming yourself and judging yourself like, oh my god, I must be a bad person that this happened to me and this happened to me. No, it's again kind of showing yourself that love, and then with that love, trying to experience that lesson and see what's in it really. um and yeah, and what you mentioned with, with first loving yourself and really asking yourself, am I first of all, am I willing to give love, but am I also willing to receive love and accept it, really not kind of push it away. Because for instance, so many times when people just start off on that journey of self-love, and for instance you start off with the mirror work, when you say affirmations, you tell yourself I love you, or all the things you tell to your family member, your partner, are you willing to first say to yourself, to the mirror? And most people, like I remember a few years ago, I would feel so weird doing it. It's like, come on, I cannot tell it to myself. That's just, I would like look away. Yeah, I just could not look myself in my eyes and say it, I love you and stuff. So I think, yeah, starting there and just feeling how that actually feels to you, and explore that, and exploring all the ways how you can give those words of affirmation, of love, or yeah, how are you feeling today? Like how, this part of your body feels, how does this experience feel to you, like, are you hungry, are you, all these loving things towards yourself first, to really this is also kind of a good exercise to actually see how receptive you are to love. Because if you cannot even receive your own love, are you really, again, what you said, like, are you really able to receive someone else's love without all these kind of like ego attachments and insecurities and all this stuff? So yeah, again, there's so much like to explore there.
Right, exactly. And that's sort of the root, the unwillingness to receive from an unconditional sense, first for self, and then, but really only relying upon it from others in a way. Because, it's interesting because we're not willing to receive it unconditionally from others oftentimes,
Mm,
or unconditionally for the self, but then we still cling to it and we create
yeah,
codependency, and we become reliant upon that love that we have that we do receive in certain various formats. We create sort of codependent relationships, or we
yeah,
create codependent scenarios where we rely upon the maybe the love we receive from a partner, or the satisfaction we receive from doing a task. It really goes, like, it's deeply rooted in almost everything that we do. If we're looking
mm,
for a result, or we're looking for uh, like appraisal, and people giving us sort of the satisfaction from us doing instead of us just being and having that be
yeah,
enough. We're naturally sort of just taking instead of trying to just allow it in and allow to receive naturally. But the
yeah,
more we take, the more we feel we don't actually have it, and it's sort of a paradox effect, because you
yeah.
can't take love with force. It can't be controlled. Like, it can't be. It's not something that is bound to the same constructs of our mind and our ego.
Hmm.
And that's something that's really scary to us, because the mind wants to control everything. It wants to have the
Yeah.
rational, like, set, like, this is the way it is, and that's perfect. Love you can't control. It creates a world you can't control, and I think that was a George Orwell
Mm,
quote in 1984. Like, fear love because it creates a world they can't control, right? And that's
mm.
and
I
that's
love that.
right. And it's profoundly true to recognize that even within oneself, right? It creates the world we can't control, but it creates a life we can't control. And it's like,
Yeah.
do we truly need the control? I would say is a question we can ask ourselves. And there's certain level of structures that are necessary. There's certain levels of, structure that we can't have in our lives, but even within that, can we seize the need to control? Can we truly surrender? Can we truly let go? And
Mm.
that's a question to sit with. It's not any ideally
Yeah,
we want to say, yeah, we can let go, but are we actually doing
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I feel like, again, we want to try to control like how we do this, what we surrender to, what we not surrender to, what we are willing to let go of or not. Like, again, we try to create these kind of boundaries in our heads and kind of strategies for this as well, which is, yeah, a bit funny, but definitely it's kind of, again, stepping outside of like the world that we are used to and the way of thinking that we are used to, and really opening ourselves to something new, and that exploration, that never ending exploration, really. And yeah, definitely, like, stepping into to love, and it's going to be stepping into to a new concept of love, not something like we've been taught so far, because I think so far, like, we've been taught that love is relationships, it's marriage, it's like romantic love, it's kind of, very systemic, and there are all these kind of values attached to it and meanings to it, but actually it's so much more than that. And again, it's so like kind of easy to enforce like control into like relationships, and trying to be like, this is what I give, this is what I take back, and all of that. But actually, is this really love? And yeah, like, kind of letting yourself kind of go beyond what we know. And that's kind of like, yeah, that's can be scary. um but I think the more we go into it, yeah, with kind of open mind, and yeah, and not our like rational analytic mind, the more we can enjoy it really. And kind of we have to approach it just like kids learning something completely new, and with this curiosity of a child as well, because we just never experienced that before. And I think that's the way to kind of experience it, because just as a child gonna kind of want to start to walk or do something completely new, they're not gonna kind of give up just because something like, oh, they fell or
Yeah,
they hit themselves or they cannot do this math equation, whatever. They're gonna keep trying. And the same I think is with love, is that we really need to be willing to open up ourselves as if it's something completely new, because I think, yeah, we've never really been taught this, and we need to go really beyond of what we like read in books and watch on TV, to really get to experience it. And it's
absolutely.
something, again, it's something that we can only feel and experience. It cannot be really taught or explained and said like, you do this, then you do this, and you do that. Like, obviously there are some techniques, maybe meditation, letting go, but at the end of the day, it's just you and that energy of love.
Right. Exactly. And even in those techniques, in the meditations, the guide is still facilitating an inner experience, right? So,
Yeah.
it does come back to that inward realm and that inward feeling. And, I think it reminds me of the Rumi quote, you have to break your heart 1,000 times in order for it to open, right? And, what he's
Yeah.
speaking to, and maybe that's not direct heartbreak in relationships, but it's in life.
Yeah.
It's in the shattering of the preconceived notions that we have about our heart and of love, and allowing the painful attachments, because it's like anything,
Yeah.
the attachments itself and the ego that we have and all of these dependencies that we create, we give them life. And so how do we
Mm,
let them go? They have to die. And is the death going, sometimes death, it'll be the death of them and letting them go. It will be quick. It'll be easy. It'll surrender, right? But
mm,
as is just in life in general, there are a lot of ways to die, and some of them are painful, right? And so
yeah.
we have to actually experience, ripping it out by the root and actually feeling, what those one, what, with this feeling, we can ask, what is it that this attachment was actually doing? What is it
Yeah.
serving? Because there is a purpose
Yeah,
as to why
exactly.
we had it, right? It's not like it's just some neurotic, like absolutely pointless attachment. Like it was serving a purpose. And for a while, you could even say helping us to understand and navigate life based on how
Mhm.
we were, based on our own understanding of self. And so we created it as a rational explanation, as a rational way of surviving, right? And
Yeah.
I think it comes from, especially if we're in survival mode, which we're really
Yeah.
trained to be,
Yeah.
we can't have that deeper trust or that faith in this this concept of love that is beyond mind and beyond what we're actually capable of perceiving in our five senses. So we create the survival mode attachments and dependencies and all of these things, which are really rational to the mind, to explain like,
Mm.
hey, I need this in order to survive for this and this reason, because of this pain, this here. And so it kind of becomes a tangled mess, but in a way it was serving us to help us and
Yeah.
let us move forward and survive in the way that we knew how. So we kind of almost, it can be easy to look at ourselves and have this roaring inner critic and judge of, judging ourselves of, oh,
Yeah.
look at me, I'm so scared of love, what a horrible person I must be. Like, no, 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 don't say that. Like it's I think it, in a way, what would love do now? It would be loving and supporting of that.
Still,
Be like, look at
yeah.
how beautiful that is. You survived even
Yeah.
with all that stuff up to this point. You can let it go now. It's all right. Right. So it's
Yeah.
sort of a simple shift in the way that we even begin to approach these topics and approach these subjects, and looking at the way in which we are confined, or we are restricted, or feeling, or internally feeling bound to these old attachments. The surrendering process, it does require a lot of trust and faith, but sometimes we do
Yeah.
have to feel that pain, or we do have to feel uh, I don't know, the letting go, and it's going to be unique to all of us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you touch on so many interesting topics, but yeah, definitely just giving yourself that space to explore all these attachments and beliefs, and really, yeah, ask yourself like, what, like, is it serving me, and like, why is it here, and what is the root of this like belief. And as you said, a lot of the times it was created, maybe even when we were in the womb, or maybe even in the past life, and it just helped us to survive, really. Because like, first and foremost, like, our ego and our mind it's there to keep us alive, and so it's gonna build all these attachments and beliefs, but it's not gonna help us, to thrive and to really live. So yeah, definitely sometimes it's quite actually heartbreaking to see, adults, like older people, and just really living within those like beliefs like their whole life. And it's really the beliefs that have been created when they were children. So there's really, it's just those broken children just walking around as adults and trying to, figure out life and feel love, but they're still, within those attachments and those really limiting beliefs. So definitely now is the time to kind of, yeah, explore what's really like, what kind of beliefs are guiding my life, and am I guided by love, am I guided by those by the fear, by those survival methods. And as you said, it's not about shaming yourself and judging yourself, because that's, again, it's not going with love, it's going with more fear and stuff. So something, for instance, that helped me on my journey is to really, I feel like, as who we are, there are like those different parts that build our whole being. And we can
Mhm.
kind of, what really helped me is like looking at my like inner child, like inner teenager, inner maybe like feminine, inner masculine, like kind of separately, and really talk to them. And for instance, as a lot of those limiting beliefs around love, for instance, and how I receive love and how I give love, really stem from childhood. So then you would go back to, your inner child and talk to yourself just like to a child, and show that love. And really, instead of being like, oh no, why are you doing this, like you shouldn't be doing this, why you're stupid, like this way you'll never find love, you're not worthy of, you would never tell that to a little child, right? So why would you say it to yourself and to your inner child? So then I feel like when you kind of can visualize that kind of child version of you, and you talking to them, you instantly feel like more loving, you'll be more gentle. And so having that kind of conversation and really checking in, and maybe, hey, like, why did you start believing into, for instance, that you can, that love comes with pain, and that, you cannot be loved for who you are. And maybe it will tell you that, oh, this is the way my parents treated me, and so this is how I learned to receive love, and this is what love is. So now I'm just repeating the pattern with other people. And you can kind of guide them and be there, this kind of, as children, we always, perceive adults as these super people, and as those guides. So then you can be that guide to that inner child, and explain to them that this is not how, you can experience love, you can experience love in other ways. And then you can give yourself, like, that part of yourself, that love, and then it will shift that energy within you as well, and shift those beliefs. I don't know, maybe I'm a bit chaotic how I explain this process, but I found it very powerful. And like I said, it's just kind of talking directly to those parts of ourselves that kind of believe in those things. Because usually it's a matter of when we feel that resistance, it's a matter of that there is some kind of like inner conflict between, yeah, the path of love, but then there's that voice of fear as well. And
Right.
so instead of just like keep trying forcing that path and like going with love, but then we still have that fear of this voice of fear, and it can be so exhausting really. And then instead of that, you can actually go back and like talk to that inner voice, and whether that's your inner child, whether that's your like wounded teenager, because it tends to be sort of a different energy, or maybe it's your wounded feminine, or masculine, all of these parts of yourself. It's, it's interesting to have that conversation it might sound a bit crazy because you have that internal in conversation, you're talking to yourself, but actually this is how you would do it if you had like an issue with a friend, right? You would want to sit down and talk. And so this is the same way you do it inside, and then it can be very transformative.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've definitely been through a similar process as you, is to having those internal conversations with different parts of myself where because when we have wounds or trauma or things, the energy stagnates, right? And it creates
Yeah,
that within us. And so that's going to be there until it's addressed at its root. And so having the conversation with 5-year-old Evan, then 12-year-old Evan, and having, because there are different things that come up.
yeah,
And like you said, it's a different conversation with each part of ourself when we have different blockages or traumas or beliefs that we hold about love based on our upbringing and based on what we've experienced. You need to have those different conversations and look at the different attachment styles that are present, and and recognize that even if it may feel, in a way, someone could look at this and say, oh, you're fracturing yourself into this part and then this part and this
mm,
part. In a way, it's a way of coming back to wholeness, because
mm,
they are all intertwining, and it's all in one interflowing and interconnected system within
yeah,
ourselves. But all of those things live within us, and we
yeah,
want them to be flowing in
yeah,
symbiosis and in harmony. And the only way to do that is to address where we are feeling fractured, where we are feeling
yeah,
separate, or where we were taught that this is the way love is, and it's a brutal judge, and it's fear based. And it's the same thing of like, and a lot of people will talk about like the idea of just the fear of God in a sense, right? And I don't
mm,
necessarily resonate with that either, because why would I
yeah,
fear? What am I going to fear?
yeah,
And we need to, I think, for me, I mean, I'm speaking about my own path here, but it seems to be a general sentiment in who I talk with about this. We need to lose the need to identify all of this within fear, right? Drop that need for fear. What is there to fear within ourselves? It's all just a part of ourselves, right? And even the
yeah,
external world, it's a reflection of our internal reality. We are all interconnected. So even that is a reflection of self. So what is there to fear about myself? And it's a
mm.
powerful question. And, I
Yeah,
think we're all going to have our own answers to that. But the reality is we don't need to fear anything about ourselves. There's nothing that we should feel shamed about, because and obviously we make mistakes along the way, but it all came back to our own ability. This is how I'm learning to survive. This is what I was raised into. And there's a level of, you can take responsibility for that and own where there are mistakes, and maybe there is a level of uh consequence to the action. You can't really be a victim of your own choices in a way. And I think that's an
mm,
empowering way to live life. But at the same time, you don't need to be a harsh inner critic and judge of oneself and completely throw your character out the window because of your past, right? So,
yeah,
about that sacred balance and really coming into a sense of wholeness and unity
yeah,
within oneself.
yeah. No, that's so interesting. And yeah, as you said, like it's obviously kind of, we don't want to put ourselves into those boxes, into those parts, and again label things of like, oh, inner child, this and that. But as you said, it's so important to kind of investigate all our being, and for everything to flow smoothly, we need to look at each part of like who we are. And
Yeah.
it's just like in nature, like there are those ecosystems, and
Mhm.
if one part of that ecosystem is not working well, it's going to have an effect on the whole system. And the same, I don't know, with chakras, for instance, energy centers, one might not be working so well, it's going to have an effect on the whole, on your whole energy. The same with your physical body. If your liver doesn't work well, it's going to have an effect on the whole body as well. So, and to make sure that the whole being works fine and then it flows, you really kind of, it helps so much to kind of um, get into the parts of it. And it also helps with your mind, because then it kind of, that the analytical aspect of your mind can be really helpful here, because you have these parts, you can think of, okay, this is my inner child, so I can go back into that time. So you can kind of actually collaborate with your ego in a way, in your analytical mind in that sense here. And then also what I really found also through, working with my clients and stuff, is that once you do that inner child work, you actually also realize that even though that inner child, unfortunately, with a lot of us, comes with a lot of wounds, with a lot of attachments and some limiting beliefs, it's not there to put us like down and really be this kind of burden that we carry on. It's actually there to support us. Like our inner children want to like really be there for us and bring us that sense of curiosity, that fun, that flow. But it's just that we need to create that space for it, and we need to do that. We really need to like learn to listen to it and learn to kind of be there for it and hold it by their hand. And to really guide it. So it's just in the same works with, inner feminine, inner masculine. Like it's a matter of really, yeah, again, like going back into what we said at the beginning, it's just to taking that time to be present with it and giving it space and really explore what is in there, which can be very scary. And again, one thing is that we're not taught to do this, but also if you want to kind of participate fully in the society, you don't really have time or energy to do that, any of this, because you're always like on the run, like you're going to sit down and talk to yourself, what? Like you have all these people to answer the messages to and be distracted with. So it's really, yeah, kind of committing to yourself and to your healing and exploring all these parts. And the thing is that it's kind of like, yeah, it's never ending, but it can be such an amazing and wonderful journey, really. And I actually in a way like that part, that it's never ending, because you get to learn more and more things along the way. And for instance, the way I work with my inner child now, it's so different than I did like a year ago, and the things I'm learning now are so different as well. And I think it's so really beautiful, and it can be, yeah, such an amazing journey. So again, it's also showing that self-healing journey doesn't have to be only, crying and feeling, oh, it's so heavy and this and that. It can be really wonderful and so expansive as well. But I think again, it can take time, and it also comes with, yeah, how willing are you to surrender to it.
Right.
In the
Patience,
process. Yeah.
patience and
Yeah.
surrender and trust. And you're right in a sense, because I've been on a similar journey where, a lot of the early inner child work, it does feel very heavy, right? And you almost prepare
Yeah.
time to like, oh boy, I'm really going in here. Like, you're kind of ready to have those more heavy experiences with it. But as I've evolved in the inner child work and, really been communicating with different parts of myself, a lot of it is it's enjoyable, it's fulfilling, like it's
Mm,
nurturing to really go in and own that space and hold a deep love that is
mm,
unconditional for the inner child. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful practice, right? And I think maybe that early work and a lot of this early work with love and learning to trust it and learning to let go of our traumas and really heal them. It's almost a rite of passage in a lot of ways, right? We really
mm,
lack rite of passages in our society in general. And, we do have a lot of wounded children running around in adult bodies. And I don't say that with
yeah.
judgment. I say it because I
Yeah.
lived it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we all, I think to a degree, and until we all own the fact that that is sort of the reality we're brought up in, we're not
Mm,
we have to own that first in order for us to change the reality and make that not the reality we're bringing up the next generation of children into, right?
yeah.
Because, we will just pass down the traumas if we choose
Yeah.
not to heal them, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's what I always like think about. It's that sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to deal with this. I'm just gonna, carry my life as it is. I don't have energy to deal with any
yeah,
of it anymore. Then I always think about, one thing is the people around me, because I know this has effect on them, but also my children, my family, and the next generations. But also, what along the ways I also realized that anytime I do self-healing, I also heal like my like kind of other me, like alternative reality me, and my past selves, my ancestry. Like it has such a immense effect. And yeah, we don't really realize it, but it's truly so powerful. Like I don't know if you do any work with like your ancestors, but whenever like you connect with them, they really so kind of in awe how brave you are when you do that work, because they also, it has such an effect on them. And really, and because so many of these of these beings, they didn't have an opportunity to really heal, and because of how the world has been, although I mean, I always say that it's all in the now, but it's just like on different
Yeah,
levels. But but
absolutely.
still, it's in the reality where they are, they did not have these tools and that space to really heal themselves. And so the work that we're doing right here, right now, it also heals them and give them that peace of mind. And also it breaks those generational the trauma patterns, and so that the next generations are not affected. And yeah, I think that's really important. And right now, like, there's so much talk about where the world is going and how we're going to support the next generations, and a lot of it, I always felt like it's on an energetic level, because if we don't kind of heal the energy and shift the energy, how are we supposed to build a better world? How are we supposed to live more sustainably or more intact, with nature, if we don't like teach our children or ourselves like how to commune with nature, how we like supposed to love nature and all of that. So how we're supposed to build a better world without um polluting like the earth so much, and etc. But it also comes down to like our own healing and what we pass down. And I think this can be such a big inspiration, because that's, to me, it definitely is. I always think about it, and and also think about my past selves and how my past self would be, like as me as a teenager and kid, like how they would be proud of me right now, like doing all this work. Um, so yeah, I think that works really great.
Yeah, and well, when you heal yourself, in turn, you are healing the world because you are
Yeah,
the whole world. It lives
yeah,
within you, right? So if you can feel
yeah.
that and you bring that healing and whole energy to your surroundings, that is going to resonate. You are going to heal the wounds of your ancestors past. And I think what it represents is sort of kind of what we already touched on earlier about survival mode. The world has been in such a state of survival based consciousness, in a sense. Like
Mm,
that has been the operating force for the way we live and the systems we've constructed. But now that's sort of what we're exiting. And so to do that
yeah.
healing work is to create the paradigm shift within oneself first, and then to bring it to the rest of the world through your healed actions, through a deeper sense of unconditional love. And you really get to change the world just through changing yourself. It's kind of that cliche idea, but I guess they
Yeah.
say cliches for a reason, because there is profound levels of truth to that statement, and to actually owning the fact that it's interesting because with healing, there's the temptation to forever be healing, and I think there are levels of it that is
Mhm,
necessary. You do need to continually go into this inward realm and to
mhm.
continually explore, um, but you can forever identify as the person who is healing instead of the person who is healed too. So it's like you
Yeah.
kind of need to recognize too, like look back and say, all right, wow, I've really come a long way. I am whole.
Yeah.
I am healed. And it's not necessarily going to happen after the first day you do one inner child guided meditation. Like, yeah, all right, maybe you're not fully whole and healed yet, but you're more than you were prior.
Mhm.
So I think there's a level of ownership to, even if you know that the path is infinite, to at a certain point, using the affirmation, I am whole, I am healed, I am
Mm,
resonant, and allowing that to also guide you forward, because it's a much different energy than saying I am healing, right? Because then you imply that
yeah.
you're still broken or you're fractured or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, right? So especially if I had a recognition of that at one point. I'm like, huh, I've been doing this for a while. Who am I to say I am not healed? Obviously, there's more to go, but I
Yeah.
am healed based on where I was before. And I think that's a
Yeah.
really beautiful, just almost an affirmative way to continue on the path and really own and walk in the world through a space of unconditional love and, more of who you are on a deeper level with some confidence, with some pep in your step in a way.
Yeah. No, I think, yeah, we all kind of at some point reach that level of like, you just accept that, oh yeah, it's never ending kind of journey. So I can just accept, yeah, as I am whole now. And even though, as you said, you're not really healed because there's always something to like explore and to evolve, but you are like just again like good enough as you are and like whole, and you're not constantly see yourself as broken. You're just like kind of I like to say like evolving rather than healing, because yeah, the healing kind of implies that there's constantly something broken with you. And I've been in, and I'm sort of, I don't want to say guilty, but I know I sometimes still catch myself in that place where, maybe I have some interaction with someone and I can feel that there's some like attachment or limiting belief showing up here, or some fear. And I'm like, oh no, like I thought, I passed it, I'm above it, but then it's there. But then again, coming back to the question of what path am I going to choose here, of love or of fear, and then you can have that loving perspective on it, and you don't have to kind of judge yourself. You can just say, oh, okay, that energy is still here, like let's see how we can alchemize it. Let's see, maybe I haven't looked at it in this like this angle yet. Maybe there's more to explore here. Great, like this is like never ending journey, let's enjoy this.
Right.
Instead of like judging yourself or feeling like, oh, I'm reaching the level B and then C and then and so on. It's not really that. And at some point you can like accept it and really, yeah, enjoy it, because it can be so much fun, like, reaching like, oh, what can I learn here, what can I learn here, like also enjoying the moment where you feel like you surpass certain limiting beliefs or fears, and you feel like how your space is expanding. Like it can be really so fulfilling and exciting moment as well. As you said, like sometimes maybe comparing your current self to your old self and thinking that maybe 2 years ago I would never made that decision, I would never be brave enough to make that decision, or I would maybe looking back and you remember what kind of treatment from someone you would accept, or how you treated your like physical body. Like maybe 2 years ago you ate something that is so like out of alignment for you, and now you would never like eat it anymore. And all these little things, and it can be, yeah, really fun. And but I think it's also accepting like the paradox of life, that on one hand we are whole and enough as we are, but at the same time there will always be that path of more and of evolving. And this is also comes with the part of us that is, we are divine creators, right? We're here to create, and so we'll always by nature want more, or like want explore further and further, and we'll constantly like expand. And so it's never ending, and we also kind of need to accept that. But also, so yeah, it's a matter of finding the balance, but also accepting that paradox of life.
Absolutely. When you can accept that paradox and that it's not necessarily going to have an end, and that they're,
Yeah.
the beginnings, endings, they're all kind of illusionary anyways. They're just the
Yeah.
present now. You sort of enter into a space of play, into a space like you enter into a harmonic dance with life and with
Yeah.
with this sort of this flow. And I've definitely found this within myself. I feel like you enter into a space of timelessness in a way when you can just sort of accept who you are and then just embody it without having to think
Mm,
about it, and you just be and you flow into life, and whatever comes up, it is what it is.
mhm.
And you can certainly you have moments where I guess that timelessness and that newfound sense of who you are is tested. But
Yeah.
if you can truly anchor in who you are and let that allow you to, or just let that flow, life does sort of become like play, and it's like a big
Yeah.
playground, and it's like it's the entering back into that child mind of
Hmm.
exploring and letting life come to you, and you sort of you end up exactly where you need to be. And
Hmm.
I found myself having more and more moments where I am sort of lost in the flow, which is beautiful
Yeah.
because I don't need to think about, obviously I still have structure in life. I still have goals and visions and ideas and things that I'm working towards. But along the way, I'm not attached to the outcome of the goals. I'm more just in the flow of that's,
Hmm.
the action now, here, present. And it's a beautiful, beautiful space to play within and just explore because there is nowhere to go or to do or nothing to do. You could just be and flow.
Yeah.
That is where love ultimately resides and
Mm.
will be found in its purest, most unconditional form. And I think it's what we're moving into. If I'm experiencing it on an individual level and I'm feeling the shift within myself, I know it's taking place outside of myself and other people are
Yeah.
stepping into this as well. So, I don't know exactly what the world is going to look like as we continue to shift into this. Certainly, there might be
Mm.
more dark night of the soul type lessons we got to deal with on a collective scale here. That's fine, I
Mm.
suppose. I'll find peace within the chaos. But on the other side of that, if it's in this same space I'm feeling within myself, what a beautiful world we're moving into, and
Yeah.
I think we can really uh, find moments even in chaos, find moments even in if it feels like our own internal world is on fire, where we can still recognize the beauty and the sacredness that is present and that hasn't gone anywhere. And that
Yeah.
ultimately tuning into that, that's going to be what keeps us going forward and where we find true love and who we are on a deeper level.
Yeah, yeah, I think as what you said, it's like moving from doing to being,
Yeah.
and just really asking yourself like who you are and what are you outside of doing and outside of those different roles that you have in your world, and just like who you really are being, and just really tap into that because there's like this energetic difference between the two. And yeah, and giving yourself that space to really just be and explore whatever there is there. Um and yeah, I feel like, especially for instance me, I live in London, UK, so it's such a crazy, epicenter of matrix and all of that, so it's always interesting. I feel like it's such a big part of, yeah, my lesson and my like, yeah, spiritual awakening to be here, and like how I can navigate my um yeah, my evolution within that world that is so, so busy, and people don't really, spend so much time to reflect and all of that, and how I can find my space in it and still navigate through it. I find it very interesting because sometimes maybe I feel like, oh, if I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be in a place like this or this and that. There's like this spiritual ego coming in. But then I'm thinking there is, in there knowing that I know that I'm meant to be here right now. And all of this is my lesson and I can enjoy it instead of feeling like, oh no, like I'm suffering here and this and that. I can treat it again like a display and just sometimes observing like how others are living and how all of it is so, because I feel like in the places like this you can so tell like how this whole world is like a simulation and it's not
Yeah.
all like real, and it's really, yeah, finding those moments of, yeah, presence. But I think the play, it's really important not to take everything so seriously. And I think now, yeah, and in places like, for instance, yeah, London, you can really see that polarity a lot, which again, it kind of can help you actually to move beyond it, if that makes sense, because it's such a massive difference between the two energies. And we can also see how, I feel like in a place like this, you can really tell how each of us live in a completely different reality also. And it's really like we decide what reality we get to live in and what we get to experience. Um, and yeah, I think like because yeah, as I've lived here for 6 years now, and I've had like different stages, and some, like for instance, yeah, like a year ago, I definitely had a time where I felt like, oh no, like why am I here, and just being in that victim or suffering more. But then now I'm like enjoying, because I know it's a part of my journey and this is where I'm meant to be now. And I can just play around with it and continue to explore like what is here for me and what am I supposed to learn here, and just have a play with it and surrender to it.
Right, exactly. We always are where we are meant to be for the sole reason that we are there. So we might as well own
Yeah.
it and embrace the fact that the journey brought us to where we are, where we are, and we can, from that moment on, move forward in that and make the consciously empowered decisions that are necessary. And ultimately, like you've observed, and I've observed, and I'm in the state of Montana in the U.S. right now, and certainly
Mm,
it's interesting because you have a mix of, obviously there's beautiful nature all around, but you do have
mm,
the games of the Matrix being played here,
yeah.
certainly to a degree. But even in my traveling around and going to places like LA, or, I went to
Yeah.
college in Boston, or a big city. So I've had my share of city slicking, I guess you could say. But you can see how there are different planes of consciousness, different planes of reality, all existing simultaneously on
Yeah.
top of one another. And it all comes down to the personal choice of where do I want to reside, or who do I want to be. And even within a place like London, one of the epicenters of the world for this system, for this world that
Mm,
we have created, you can still live in alignment with something that is far beyond what we are conditioned into. And, you know, even in a city environment, can you sit and you feel the wind against your skin? You can hear a bird.
yeah.
You can hear, like, there's still tree, like there's still the presence of the sacred all around, even in the
Yeah.
concrete jungles of cities. So it's much less about where are you and more a matter of who are you in that environment and what you're choosing to tap into and really
Yeah.
align yourself with. Because we got to have people who are embodying uh, this level of awareness all over the planet. We can't just have them all in one tiny little spot.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how do you spread the seeds of awareness, right? And
Exactly.
plant the seeds for this new earth that we're moving into, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So awesome. So Victoria, we're at almost about an hour and a half. This is really like flown by.
Yeah.
I feel like I asked one question and we just flowed the rest of the way, which is beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
so, I mean, do you have any, I guess I gotta ask if you have any other last thoughts or ideas that are coming in, but also, where you would like to send listeners to interact with you, and if you have any offerings that you would like to put out there, I guess I can give you the space for that, and, whatever
Um,
flows in and resonates with the heart.
yeah, so at the moment I'm probably am the most active on Twitter. It's Wiktoria Alamandra. It's with W
W.
instead of V, and instead of C there's K. Um, and I'm also about to launch my YouTube channel. And on Twitter I also have linked my website where you can book my session. So the healing, coaching, it's all available there. And I'm really excited, and hopefully we get to chat again, because it was really interesting and really inspiring and healing, I feel like. I don't know how you feel about this.
Definitely.
And it was really exciting because it was my first time doing a podcast. So
Oh,
thank you
wow.
so much for inviting me and giving me this space. I really loved it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say it was very resonant and affirming upon a lot of these things that we talked about in this podcast. I've been
Mhm.
experiencing firsthand, even in just the last few weeks. Like these are just like these are, I guess, timeless lessons because I
Yeah.
recognize how they continue to unfold, and it was deeply healing and moving in a lot of ways. Like I
Mm,
definitely would love to keep the conversation going in a sense. So, you have an open invitation anytime. And I'm excited for you to launch your YouTube because you do have a very profound way and space that you embody like that. And the way that you,
mhm,
you come on and share and immediately enter into a flow state, right? So you
mhm.
have a gift of light that you're bringing. So I'm excited
Oh,
for it to
thank you.
continue to expand and, see where it goes. So I'll definitely put all the links to all of your offerings and everything in the episode show notes. People can just, I don't know,
Amazing.
yeah, they're not
Thank you
so
so much.
generally, unless I link things, people they don't remember to go and check things out. So I'll put it down there and people can just scroll down, even if they're feeling a little lazy, click right there. But yeah, let's definitely plan on doing another one because this was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
there's so much that we could continue to explore. I know that
Yeah.
this could have turned into a Joe Rogan marathon type of episode if we wanted it to. So
Yeah,
we'll
I
definitely
know.
have to plan on doing it again soon.
Yeah, I would love that really. Yeah, thank you so much again. And yeah, I really love your work as well. And I'm so excited to continue doing things together.
Yeah, absolutely. The creation process is just beginning. And what are your plans for like your YouTube channel? Is it going to be like just short videos, or like do you have a vision for it in mind that you can, I don't know, sometimes speaking the vision into existence is always a thing too. So what are your ideas for it?
Yeah, I feel like I want to do it quite sort of like a free flow of just, talking about those different topics that also relate to the work that I do with my clients. I don't want to keep it like too structured and
Yeah.
to like, oh, 5 ways to do this, 5 techniques to do that, because I feel it's not really me.
Yeah.
And just see how people resonate with it. Eventually, yeah, I would love to do some bits with guests as well. Um, yeah, I think that I also had an idea for doing like vlogs of how to navigate like life in London. I don't know, like a star seed living in London, something
Yeah.
like that. But to be fair, then I realized that being this, it means mainly staying home and going to the same spot. So I
Yeah.
don't know how exciting that is to watch on a vlog, but maybe exploring something like that, because I will also that might help other people, but also maybe we could build like a community around it. But yeah, definitely I just want to start with just like a free flow, because I think that what resonates with me the most.
Right on. I love
um,
it. I love it. That's the way to do it. And just trust in the free flowing process. That's kind of how I
yeah.
started the podcast. I didn't really know what I was doing in a way. I just sort of started it up, and here we are almost 3 years now.
Oh,
So I'm like,
wow.
it's like, all right, just flowing, just going, just doing it. So it's beautiful
Yeah.
how it almost takes on a life of its own when you start creative ideas and just trust in the flow states. And so
Yeah.
it
And
builds its own momentum.
yeah, exactly. And then you just tap into the energy and the things that are need to be heard right now. So I think, yeah, that's the way to go.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and that's what we did here today. We just tapped into exactly what the energy was, and we just flowed with it. And so, it's kind of how a lot of my podcasts end up going. Like, I don't know where they're going to end up, and they just sort of flow into where exactly we need to, I guess, chat about. And it's the same thing, I guess, with any like YouTube channel or just creative projects. It's sort of
Mm.
just, what's the energy? Feel it? Okay, let's flow with it. Let's roll with it. See where it takes us. So, oh, that's beautiful. I'm excited. I'll give you a subscription when it drops, and
Thank you.
and if anybody is listening to this podcast down the road, check the episode show notes. When you drop it, I'll add it to the episode show notes, so it'll
Oh my gosh, yes.
whenever that is. So I don't know if somebody's listening a few months from now, maybe they can definitely check down. It might be there. So
Yeah,
cool,
let's make it happen. Let's
wonderful.
manifest this.
Manifest happened, done, already here, just not in the physical form yet. Here, but yeah, wonderful. That's beautiful. So thanks to all the listeners for tuning in, and we shall see you all on the next episode.